Yes, you choose. Welcome to the Social Entrepreneur. Today's video is about creating work experience whilst you're at university and doing this by running community projects. I'm going to share with you the 12 processes that I went through to design, develop and run initiatives to help me gain work experience, to develop my skills, experience and expertise. While I was studying my degree at university, I really struggled to gain work experience. Studying in Leeds and being from Birmingham and not being able to afford to go down to London to work within the sector and the industry that I was studying that was predominantly based down there. I tried to gain work experience, internships and paid placements as well as a year in industry, only it was really competitive and difficult to do that. So an alternative to this was to look to actually create my own work experience that would support my employability as well as the potential for me to set up something when I graduated. I studied fashion design management and I recognised that 3,000 students a year graduate from this subject area, yet there are only around 750 new positions in industry. So 75% of the individuals that graduated were going to struggle. I needed to do whatever I could to develop my skills, experience and expertise as well as my portfolio so that once I completed my course and applied for positions in industry, I would be shortlisted to be interviewed for those positions and hopefully gain my first graduate level position within the industry. So after trying for 12 months to gain work experience and being unsuccessful, I decided to be entrepreneurial and adopt a different approach. I recognised that charitable and social organisations were always looking for volunteers, so I thought, why don't I design and develop and run some fashion-based projects with local charitable and social organisations which would help and support individuals that they work with, and equally I would gain some really good skills, experience and expertise as well as a track record that would help and support me in the future. Whilst I was at university, I designed, developed and ran projects with organisations like The Big Issue, Salvation Army, Oxfam, Homeless World Cup and Age UK. And I'm going to use the Big Issue project as an example to share with you how you can go and design, develop and implement a project to get some good work experience. Process 1. You need to decide on the skills, experience and expertise that you wish to gain. So for me personally, studying fashion design management, that moment in time I was interested in going into the industry and becoming a creative director. So not necessarily a designer, but someone that would oversee and help direct and manage the creation of brands or collections and managing others to do that. So I needed to gain some work experience of managing other individuals to create designs and collections to not only gain that skills and experience, but to evidence that I had expertise to employers once I graduated in and around that area. Process 2. Deciding on the area that you wish to make an impact. So community projects generally support individuals, groups and organisations to create positive outcomes within society. And one of the things that you need to do before you set up and run your own community project is decide what area would you like to create some social impact in. And for me, that was homelessness. Process 3. Once you've decided the skills, experience and expertise you wish to gain and the area you wish to have an impact, you need to decide how are you going to actually create that. So before studying fashion in university, I used to work at The Gap, and I did this to gain some experience so that whilst I was applying for university, it would make me stand out and show that I have a commitment to the area. Whilst I was working in there, for some reason I became concerned about individuals at risk of homelessness, and especially rough sleepers. And I developed a concept of, wouldn't it be great if the Gap designers, for example, worked with homeless individuals to design really versatile clothing so that they would be warm and safe on the streets. In addition to this, I thought, well, making sure individuals are warm and safe on the streets is great, but actually, what if the designers could not only support that, but equally teach the homeless individuals fashion design skills and actually design, develop and create a fashion label influenced and based on homelessness that could employ some of those individuals so that they could generate an income and they would no longer need to sleep on the streets. Before I knew it, in my mind, I'd created a brand which would train up homeless individuals to become fashion designers. We'd have a retail store to sell those designs, a warehouse, a head office, and I'd created lots of opportunities to support individuals from disadvantaged and socially excluded backgrounds to gain employment and to not be at risk of homelessness. So the way that I decided that I could make an impact was taking this initial concept that I developed before I was at university, recognizing that actually now I was being taught how to be a fashion designer and manage fashion-based processes to set up and run fashion-based startup or work for a fashion-based company in industry. So I condensed my 3-year fashion design management course into a 3-month fashion design and its commercial development course that could teach homeless individuals all the processes involved in the design, production, promotion and retail of fashion-based products. This would obviously help individuals from disadvantaged and socially excluded backgrounds that, for example, couldn't afford to go to university, didn't have the time, didn't have the prior qualifications to get onto a course. And as part of the course, participants would be expected to work together on a collaborative basis to design and develop a branded range of clothing influenced and based on homelessness. And as part of the project, we would actually create the brand and the designs to retail to raise funds and awareness for homeless services. This would gain those individuals really good skills, experience, as well as me as well, as somebody who was managing the process to create a new brand and a collection. Process 4. Once I'd designed and developed a potential community project, I now needed to identify some organisations already connected with the individuals that I wished to help and support to run that with. So for individuals at risk of homelessness, I looked around the city that I was based in and I noticed a number of individuals that were selling the Big Issue. So that was the initial organisation that I came across that I thought, wouldn't it be great to run the community project with them? I also recognised that I might approach them and they might not wish to run this project with me, so I did some research and identified some other local and national homelessness organisations like Shelter and Crisis, for example. Process number 5. I've now identified some potential organisations to approach, but obviously if you want to approach some social or charitable organisations to run a project with, to support the individuals that they help, you need a plan, because I needed to show them that I was serious, that I took some time, energy and effort to design and develop a really great program that could help them as an organisation as well as their service users. So I spent some time to sit down and actually design out the 3-month course and highlighted all the areas that they would learn the processes involved in the design, production, promotion and retail of fashion-based products. I even designed out the weekly sessions that would be run across the 12 weeks. For example, learning how to create a brand name, a logo and a slogan, how to capture imagery and use computer-aided design software to create designs that could be printed onto clothing. They would learn how to actually source clothing that those designs and that brand could be printed onto, where they could produce point of sale merchandise or get swing tickets created from, how to create marketing and promotional material like going out into the city to create a campaign working with local models and photographers. In addition to this, how to create shots for e-commerce so the designs and the brand could be sold online. Working with a web designer to create a website for the products to be sold on. And I did all this working with students that had aspirations to become models or photographers or web designers or visual merchandisers, for example. So the community project was not only getting me experience that I wanted to get, but I was also providing opportunities for other creative and entrepreneurial students within the university that I was studying in to gain experience as well. After creating the plan itself, process number 6 was then figuring out how much it was going to cost me to run the community project and what equipment, facilities and resources did I need to implement that. So for me, in order to deliver this fashion design and its commercial development course, I needed a laptop that I could use to present presentations on. I needed a digital camera that we could use to go out and capture imagery to create designs. I also needed computer-aided design software to turn those photographic images into images that could be printed onto garments. I also needed some capital as well once we designed and developed and created the branded range of clothing and the initial collection to actually create samples and designs that we could sell to raise funds and awareness for local homeless services, as well as reinvest in the community project itself so that we could continue to run that. Once I'd sat down and figured out the equipment, facilities and resources that I needed and the associated costs with that and how much funding I needed in order to deliver the community project, process 7 was about approaching the organisations to gain some buy-in and support from them to confirm that they'd like to work with me to run this community project to support the individuals that they work with. So I approached the big issue with my plan about the course, and they were really pleased and were happy to work with me. So process 8, once I'd got the big issue on board, I then needed to apply for some funding to run the community-based project. So with the plan and calculations that I'd created to run the community project, I started to apply for small amounts of funding from local as well as national organisations that offered grants for individuals like students to set up and run community-based projects that would help and support people. I was really fortunate at the time that my university had something called Lucy, the Leeds University Community Initiative, that gave out grants from £500 to £1,000 for students to set up and run projects in the community that would help and support others. So I used the plan, my calculations for how much it was going to cost to run the project, and the confirmation that the big issue was happy to work with me on that to complete and submit an application to Lucy, the Leeds University Community Initiative, and I waited. Fortunately, I was successful and granted the funding to run the community project. One thing that I will say is that you're not, unfortunately, going to always be successful applying for funding to run social and charitable projects. Don't let that stop you from still running that community project. Be creative and be entrepreneurial. So for example, if I wasn't successful in gaining all the funds that I need to run it and only successful in raising a small amount, I could have reached out to other students in different schools and faculties across the university that, for example, would have access to a digital camera that I could use or a laptop to do the presentations on. It always amazes me as well that you can reach out to other individuals, groups and organisations and explain that you're looking to run a project to help and support others, and that actually they will give you some in-kind help and support. So for example, space to run your project in, or access access to other equipment and facilities and resources that you need to do that. So there are ways and means of getting around the fact that you may not have all the funds that you need to implement and run your project. Process 9. Once you've hopefully got your funds and your partners on board to run your community project, you now need to go and run that. So as part of this process, I had to work with the Big Issue to promote the course to its vendors that sold its street magazines, to recruit people onto the program. Fortunately, we had a fairly good uptake for this and I could deliver the project itself. I worked with Big Issue vendors not only in Leeds, where I was studying my undergraduate in fashion design management, I also ran the project back in Birmingham as well, where I lived and would be out of term time. So I delivered the course twice, working with Big Issue vendors in both of those cities. Process number 10. Once you've actually completed the project, you then need to take some time to evaluate what worked well and what didn't work well, and ways that this could be improved. Sometimes you need to do this to report back to your funders that gave you the grant to set up and run the community project. But equally, it's still a great process for you to go through yourself. The evaluation and improvement of the program might also create some opportunities to apply for some additional funding. Process number 11 is looking at the future development of the project and how that can be run to scale up its impact that it has. So the Big Issue itself is actually part of a network called the International Network of Street Papers. So 50+ organizations based all over the world that support homeless individuals to sell magazines to help generate an income. So for me, one of the things that I wanted to do in the future with the project is to not only help Big Issue vendors in the UK, I wanted to use that network of street papers right across the globe to scale up and develop the program to not only help individuals in the UK but right around the world. I also wish to create the designs themselves and try and get them stocked in retailers like Urban Outfitters and Selfridges, for example, as well as look to retail the designs online through its own dedicated website. I tried to approach buyers in fashion retailers, but unfortunately I couldn't get any of those to stock the brand and the initial collection that we created. And that was quite understandable because at the time I didn't have the skills, experience or expertise to really know how to do that. Equally, I didn't have the knowledge around setting up an e-commerce website to retail and promote the designs as well. So I simply ran the community project a number of times, passing on the skills and experience that I gained on my course to homeless individuals to train them up in fashion and its commercial development, and then decided to go on after that to set up some other projects to help and support other individuals and gain some other skills, experience and expertise that I needed to increase my employability and likelihood of gaining employment within the sector when I graduated, or to support me to set up and run my own fashion-based enterprise in the future. Process number 12. This is actually taking some time after the community project has been implemented and looking back at it all to think, what would I have done to make that better, and what did I equally learn from that process, and if I was to do it again, how would I do it differently? So for me, at the time when I ran this project as a student in university, it wasn't super easy to actually market and promote a brand or designs like it is today. Social media platforms weren't as developed, so it was difficult to really gain individuals' interest to buy the designs. Equally, I recognized that I couldn't necessarily be in lots of different locations that if the project were to be able to scale, but at the time there wasn't necessarily the technology to record sessions and to deliver that via an online platform that people could access and log on to all around the world. Other really great initiatives that are around today, like crowdfunding, didn't exist as well. So were I to do this project again, if retailers were rejecting and not necessarily wanting to stock the brand and its designs, things like a crowdfunding campaign would be really great to use. So I could have captured imagery and video from delivering the project and the course to the individuals at risk of homelessness, and created a crowdfunding campaign and promoted that via social media to get people interested in what the initiative was looking to achieve, to pre-buy designs, for example. I could have also easily set up a website to sell the designs online. Unfortunately, back when I ran this project, there weren't businesses around like Squarespace or Wix, for example. So overall, the project was a success, but maybe I potentially ran it a bit too early. Whereas if I'd have ran it a few years later, there would have been really great products and services out there, like social media platforms, like being able to easily set up a e-commerce website to really promote the project and to sell the designs that were created. I was really glad that I ran the project, and I gained some really good experience and track record from that allowed me to run other projects whilst I was a student to gain more experience to support my personal and professional development for the future. I could have also videoed my experience of actually setting up the project as well as implementing it and delivering the course to the individuals from disadvantaged and socially excluded backgrounds, and created a vlog that I could have put onto platforms like YouTube, which would have raised further awareness about the project and what it was trying to achieve. Unfortunately, again, platforms like YouTube didn't really exist or were in their very early infancy around the time that I ran that project. I hope today's video has been useful for you in sharing all the processes to create your own work experience whilst you're at university by setting up a community project. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Bye.